Okay, so looks like we are live. Um, Hello, everybody. This is the League of Women Voters of the Eastern UP, an informational session on the redistricting process. My name is Megan Matajasic, and I volunteered to kind of represent our league in what's happening with the redistricting for this year. So let me give you just a brief introduction. I'm here representing, like I said, the League of Women Voters of Michigan and the Eastern UP. We are nonpartisan, and we encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We do not support or oppose candidates, and you might be familiar with our efforts to educate voters, like through the voter guides, Voter 41 or Vote 411, candidate forums, especially here in the UP. We've done quite a bit of that. Sometimes we do study issues and take positions. The league was formed in 1920 as an outgrowth of the suffragist movement, not surprisingly. And we are in 50 states. And here in Michigan, we have 27 local leagues. Membership is open to anyone 16 and older. And you'll see that on my last slide, I'm going to encourage new memberships. The league also works to increase the understanding of major public policy issues through education. So, thus, we are here today because redistricting isn't new, right? But the way that Michigan has chosen to do redistricting through an independent commission is new. So, this presentation is going to cover three topics: redistricting and how gerrymandering affects it, what Michigan did to get rid of gerrymandering, or is hoping to do to get rid of gerrymandering, and the new system for election district lines. So this really does impact all of us. I am going to share my screen now. And before I do that, I will turn off my video and share. All right. So let's see. All right. So already gone through the main things here. And redistricting in Michigan, the citizens, so the MICRC, that's the Michigan Independent Redistricting Commission, not politicians, will draw the lines. So why do we do this every 10 years? Well, it won't surprise you to know that we use the census, which happens because of the Constitution. It's a decennial census every 10 years. I am going to show you just a quick glance at the what that means. So we need the census, and it needs to be coded. It needs to basically get tabulated, and the state or deliver the data to the states and public by September 30th. So if you want any more information on that process, that is available at the census website. So let me go back to full view. Okay. So basically, why do we do this? We do this because as populations grow and shrink, we need to make sure that the distribution of congressional seats across the nation that are based on population are accurate and are accurately assigned. States are tasked with drawing lines for U.S. congressional and state House and Senate districts. Every state determines its own process. So that is why Michigan decided to use this independent commission. So how are these map lines drawn? Well, federal law requires redistricting every 10 years, as I mentioned, with the census, and an equal number of persons in each district. Give me just 1 second here. Okay. So the U.S. Constitution requires that the seats for the U.S. House of Representatives be apportioned to states according to the population count, as we've talked about with the census. In the 1964 case of Reynolds versus Sims, the United States Supreme Court determined that the general basis of apportionment should be one person, one vote. And that sounds great, right? This rule means that generally electoral districts must be equal in population according to the most recent census, so that all the votes are equally weighted. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act blocks district lines that deny minority voters of an equal opportunity to participate in the political process and to elect representatives of their choice. So while the law states how many people must live in each district, it doesn't specify how the lines will be drawn or where, except that minority rights must be protected. The Voting Rights Act requires that minority voters have an equal opportunity to get results in districts where a recognized minority makes up the majority. Okay, so really quickly before I go on, I'm going to say that I will ask you to hold your questions till the end. And one of the reasons is that this is so new, and I raised my hand, and I am still learning literally as I even give this presentation. I've been studying this for a few months, but it takes a while. So we're going to keep questions till the end and go from there. And I'm going to have a lot of resources to share with you at the end as well. Politicians manipulate elections to keep themselves and their party in power. Not surprisingly, right? So gerrymandering, that's what we call this. When lines are drawn to suit special interests, aka our representatives and their areas. So basically, if we have no districts, then there's districts are compact and fair. So it's apportioned accordingly. But you can see that green rules in one instance, and then when they are compact and unfair, you will have too many green districts, again, green rules, and then districts aren't compact or fair, which is pretty much what we have, and you can see how messy that the square on the right is. So the last one on the right, as you can see, shows districts that are neither compact nor fair. Note the hard turns and lines. And we can actually see this in the shape of districts in a couple of minutes. This was an explanation of gerrymandering that was in the Washington Post. It is not representing any political party. As you can see, how the lines are drawn determines the outcome. In the first example, green wins all 4. In the second example, purple wins 1 and green wins the other 3. So we've got the cracking community, so they can't even elect their own representative. And then on the right, packing partisans into one district, so other party wins adjacent districts. Michigan congressional districts. This probably won't surprise too many people, but it did me when I first moved here, because I found out that the top of the Lower Peninsula and the entire Upper Peninsula is one district. There are 435 members of Congress. The number are reallocated among the states after every decennial census. Because of a quickly growing population, Michigan's number climbed from 12 in 1900 to 19 in 1960 and 70. Since then, as you might imagine, Michigan has lost congressional districts after each decennial census as a result of population shrinkage, basically, and we lag behind other states. Michigan still ranks 8th in the number of seats in the U.S. House. Each congressional district has about 710,000 people. So you can see again how that is reflected in the large swath on the top of the mitten and in the UP, because there are so many fewer people. Each district elects representation to the House for a 2-year term. Now, let's look at Michigan's 14th congressional district. Now, this isn't near us, but it still matters to us because it's in the state of Michigan. This is down in Oakland County and Wayne County. Basically, this is a good example of gerrymandering in Michigan, one of the worst in the country. This is Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence's seat. It has a 79% Democratic base. Over 80% of the population is African American. So we can see how gerrymandering it is basically used by politicians and representatives to their advantage. This map highlights 2012 Michigan Senate districts. Based on the 2010 census, the Senate has 38 members in districts that have 212,400 to 263,500 residents. Senators are elected at the same time as the governor, so talking state Senate now. They serve 4-year terms concurrent with the governor's term of office, and they are limited to 2 4-year terms. The next map highlights the state house. So just like the federal government, we've got a House and a Senate. So Michigan House districts from 2012 redistricting, which will be used until 2022. There are 110 Michigan members who represent about 77,000 to 91,000 residents. So you can see these are smaller. Representatives are elected in even-numbered years to 2-year terms, with the current term expiring on December 31st, 2022. Each representative is limited to serving 3 terms or 6 years. So those maps are just to kind of give you a visual of what this all looks like and some background. So how did we get to this practice of having an independent citizen redistricting commission? This was done through a constitutional amendment, Prop 2, in 2018. So the voters said, we want a commission that has to apply and has to be representative of our state, and we are going to trust them, not politicians, to draw our district lines. So just as a quick show, you can see, and I'll be sharing all of these links later, but basically we've got all of the members here, and it shows you which, so purposely, there it is bipartisan in that this is telling you here who are neutral, who are Democrats, who are Republicans. So in order to try and balance that out. I don't know if anyone remembers when the applications were out. I had a couple of friends that applied, but it was a pretty in-depth process, and we had over 9,000 applications. So these are people that really wanted to do this, and I think that's impressive in and of itself. So what this allows us to do is basically draw election maps that are fair, impartial, and transparent. So the ICRC, again, that's the independent commission, oh boy, Congressional Redistricting Commission. They must conduct all business in the open, consists of 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, 5 independents. So I showed you that where they put that next to each name of the person. They're required to draw lines that neither favor nor disfavor incumbents, any political party, or a former politician. So, by the way, all meetings are on YouTube, current and past. And at the end of our presentation, I'm going to encourage you to go to at least one of those and also maybe watch one of the past meetings. So, commission structure. I'm going to describe the nature of the commission, then who's eligible to serve and how they were selected last year. So again, back to the members, 13 members. You can see here 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and then 5 independents. And, they were screened as such and had to make sure that they were authentic in balancing with political affiliation. Also, there's 13 because that would make a tie impossible. So we won't get stuck with any of that. In order to have applied to be on the commission, you had to be registered to vote and eligible to vote and submit an application. So pretty straightforward with that. The selection process. There were 10,000 random mailings and open applications. And basically the pools of candidates came from 60 Republicans, 60 Democrats, and 80 independents, half from random mailing applicants. Okay. Then the legislative leaders each get 5 strikes, total of 20. So in a way, like choosing a jury, I suppose. And then the random draw for 13 commissioners out of that final group. So that is the actual process. The goal was to have a commission that reflects the state geographic and demographic makeup. So obviously the Secretary of State was important in this role, and people use their website to do their application. And let me just dig in a little bit more to what this process looks like, because the picture doesn't really do it justice. So without an explanation. So a random process weighted to reflect the geographic and demographic makeup of the state. Reduce the pool to 200, 60 Dems, 60 Republicans, 80 independents, who could be members of minor parties or no party. The top 2 leaders in the House and in the Senate could each strike 5 applicants, reducing the pool to 180. The final random selection produced 13 commissioners. So the hope and the result, I believe, is that this was transparent and, a great way to do the process so that there was no favoritism. So now we come to actually drawing or redrawing maps and map approval. Commissioners will spend a lot of time holding hearings. That's what's happening right now. They'll consult with experts. I know U of M is helping them with some of that demographic research. They will use specialized software and data from many sources, so including census data, right? But the census isn't the only data out there, and the census was a little bit delayed this year as well. So we've got to have other reliable sources of data. The idea is to come up with election district maps that meet the criteria in the constitutional amendment and are approved by a strictly prescribed vote of the commission. So let's go over how they will actually vote so you can kind of learn a little bit about how this is going to happen. All right. Before the ICRC votes on a map, the map must be tested to ensure compliance with the criteria. And then, so what that means is, it uses the appropriate technology, it meets the criteria in the Constitution, and basically that means that it requires a majority vote, at least 7 of the 13, and it must include at least 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 2 independents. So again, that focus on equity amongst partisans and just making sure that everybody's well represented by the commissioners. The final plan may be adopted with a majority vote. So this is 2 commissioners from each party, and that would give the majority. If these voting requirements cannot be met, each of the 13 commissioners would submit one final map for each state house, state senate, and U.S. congressional district. Then the SOS would choose from among these final maps. So I guess that would kind of be the equivalent of a hung jury. We're going to go over those specific criteria and rules. They do come from the Constitution, and this is how the ICRC must use these to create the election district maps. Remember, the bottom line here, no more gerrymandering. So that's what all of these rules and criteria are meant to ensure. The commission must abide by the following criteria in the following order. There are 7. First, there must be equal population and comply with the U.S. Constitution, Voting Rights Act, other federal requirements. Okay, so before you get to the state requirements, got to make sure you're following federal. Second, they must be geographically contiguous. Islands are considered to be contiguous to or by land to the county of which they are part. This is a big deal in Michigan and particularly in the UP. So that's something to pay attention to. Districts shall reflect the state's diverse population and communities of interest. Sorry. Communities of interest is another new concept that came out of the ICRC. Communities of interest may include, but shall not be limited to, populations that share cultural or historical characteristics or economic interest. Communities of interest do not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So I'm going to go over that a little more in depth, but just think of it as a way to kind of take the actual politics or political parties out of it and look at demographics and needs and attributes of certain regions. So, fourth, districts may not give a disproportionate advantage to any political party. No packing, no cracking. And this shall be determined using accepted measures of partisan fairness. Again, going all the way back to how the committee was assembled and will continue to operate. Fifth, districts shall not favor or disfavor an incumbent or candidate. Sixth, districts shall reflect the consideration of county, city, and township boundaries. So none of these crazy maps that are splitting, townships in half or cities in half, or we're really trying to make it so that these are much easier to understand and to actually navigate in real life. Finally, districts shall be reasonably compact. So, all right, now we get to why I hope you all are here, public participation. And I think this is just the coolest part of all of this. I don't know about anybody else, but I used to just kind of assume, okay, they redistrict and it just has to do with population changes and, we move along. But it doesn't, and it has a lot more to do with citizens giving their feedback. So we have got public hearings both before and after proposed maps are drawn. So there are at least 10 public hearings in different geographic locations are required before drawing proposed maps, and at least 5 public hearings after. So in other words, this is iterative, right? We want to draw the maps and then make sure that those look good. Do we need to tweak them? Open meetings are required. Meetings must be accessible via television or online. And of course, due to COVID, that is very important. However, the commissioners are still moving around regionally, and I will get that information to you as well, so you'll know when they're coming to the UP. Input and transparency. So the public may submit plans and underlying data. I'm talking anybody from the public for the commissioner's consideration. It's all part of the public record. The commission must publish plans and allow at least 45 days for public comment. The commission, its staff, attorneys, and consultants may not discuss redistricting matters with the public outside of a public hearing, except if it occurs in writing or a previous public forum. So very much guaranteeing that the importance of the public participation and how much the commission is going to make sure that it is, basically accepted in a fair manner, and that it is transparent. After a plan is adopted, the commission must publicize the plan and a report explaining the decisions and the materials used. This is essentially a list to correct the way maps were drawn in 2011. We will use the new maps in the 2022 election. Some of the timing has changed due to, you guessed it, pandemic-caused delays in taking and producing the census, and information about reapportionment of the Congress is delayed from late December 2020 to probably late April 2021. Final detailed numbers to draw district lines has been delayed from April 1st to probably late September. And in a minute here, I will show you a quick view at the timeline. The Michigan Constitution requires the commission to complete the maps by November 1st, 2021. And the MICRC has requested that the Michigan Supreme Court extend the final map approval date because so many things were actually delayed by the pandemic. So I'm just going to quickly show you that timeline. And that is, I believe, hang on while I get it. Okay, so timeline is right here, commission timeline. As you can see, we are kind of right in the middle there, fall 2020 to fall 2021. So this is where the commission is meeting, hosting town halls, drawing maps. And again, this is an iterative process. There are probably tons of maps out there right now, either in fancy software or on the back of a napkin somewhere. Final maps adopted by the commission, though, is November 1st, 2021. So we are in an ideal time right now to be giving feedback on this. The maps become law December 31st, and the maps take effect for 2022 elections after all that happens. So I think that that's really good to know. So let me get back to sharing. Oops, my bad. Okay. All right. So that's the timeline. So what is the League? League of Women Voters in Michigan and here in the EUP and the ICRC. How are we working together? Well, first of all, as the person who volunteered to be a part of this, I've gone to several trainings and hooked up with other leagues across the UP. And we are asked to monitor meetings and to testify. So we are encouraging community members, if you have a topic that you are passionate about and you would like to testify, you can actually do that. You can also do it in writing. And there's several ways to do that. And I'll give you links so that you're able to do that. Coordinate with key staff. So for example, here up in the UP, we have someone that kind of wrangles all of us UP chapters together to know, hey, what's happening? Okay, we do have a commissioner coming up in Marquette, or several commissioners rather, coming up to Marquette in May. They're also coordinating with key staff that serve the commission because we can ask for someone to come see us and come listen to us. And we're focusing on communities of interest. Again, this is a new concept inside a new process. So lots of new things. Sorry, I needed a drink there. Okay. So the goal is to Identify them, connect with them, support their participation in redistricting. Again, with the testifying and giving feedback. So let me just tell you a little bit about the communities of interest, which this is actually what really appealed to me, this part of it, because there are things that transcend, actual district boundaries, and they transcend political parties or any of those types of goals. There are, we have many coastal communities in Michigan which rely on tourism, right? Or other industries. So we're going to dig into this topic. What are these communities of interest and why are they so important? Right after federal law, so again, the redrawing of districts, federal law comes first, but then as a state, we decided to implement these communities of interest and the independent commission. So what does this mean? This could be populations that share cultural characteristics, historical characteristics, economic interests, you name it. My first thought was obviously, living in a coastal area that is also near an international border. How does that impact our region as opposed to other parts of the state? So pretty much, this is what a community of interest is. What we have to define, and we're in an enviable position, right? So we have moved the job of creating election district lines from a gerrymandered legislature to an independent commission of voters. So that was huge. But what that means is the whole process is brand new and largely not known or understood by the people. So actually, one of my asks of you today is to start to let people know that this is happening, just like we did for the census. We want people to know that this is happening and that they have a say in it. On top of that, the crucial 2020 census was delayed, like I said, and public processes are happening virtually rather than in person. So again, we're all very familiar with the kind of the new normal in the pandemic. This brand new concept is basically inside a brand new process. So it's the third highest priority for the commission to use. Following federal law and geographically contiguous, those are the two. But then we need to say, hey, we have these other ideas about basically, using other characteristics to define our districts. And those will actually have a higher priority than county, city, township boundaries and being reasonably compact. So it's interesting to know that we can actually have a huge impact. Here are some examples of communities of interest. Obviously throughout the state, but we are going to see that we can obviously relate to some of these up in the UP. Hispanic, Latino populations, adjacent school districts with similar issues. And that's going to be huge now while we move through COVID and see what the new normal looks like. Agricultural groups, such as dairy farmers or orchard growers. Group sharing watershed or lakeshore. So that was the one that I was pretty interested in. And obviously Native American tribes. There are some people working with the commission to do specific outreach to those tribes. However, we as the League of Women Voter representatives to the ICRC have also been encouraged to just make sure that the tribes are being consulted. Even a neighborhood association could be considered a community of interest. So really the sky's the limit. So the building blocks for legislative and congressional districts, we want to create fairer and more effective representation. And this matters because the fundamental purpose is to group members of communities of interest in a single district if possible, rather than scattering them among two or more. Remember the concept in gerrymandering of cracking particular voters among several election districts. that weakens their ability to elect the person that they think would represent them the most. Same principle applies to grouping members of a community of interest together in a different context, in the context of electing and then influencing a lawmaker. So this kind of gives an additional layer of influence to communities to build better congressional districts. All right. So here we come to the part of how you can get involved. And I have several ideas, and I have a challenge to issue here. But attending public hearings in your area, I'm going to give you a date for one that's going to happen in Marquette. Now, again, remember, things are constantly changing in terms of in-person gatherings. So I would just make sure that we're paying attention to, hey, we thought this was going to happen in person in Marquette. It's actually not going to. So how do we access it online? And if you remember at the very beginning, that was one of the things that fell under transparency, was that these hearings of the commission have to be, we basically have to have them in a public viewing, whether it's on TV, on the internet, however it is. Oops. So the public hearing schedule is at redistrictingmichigan.org. I'll end up placing that in the chat for you in a few minutes. Contact your local league for more information about communities of interest. So obviously we'll get to that as well. I'm going to have a form for you to fill out. And, you know, if you know other people that could really help us define some communities of interest, please do. Please forward the form that I'm going to give you. Finally, become a member of the League of Women Voters, or find your own local league if you're not a member, because we have several leagues across the UP and Northern Michigan. All right, so here's my challenge, and then we're going to kind of step back for questions and discussion. All right, I'll be putting this link in the chat, but I've created basically an interest form. All I need you to do is give me some contact info and then tell me, what are you interested in doing? Do you want to try and testify? Do you want to write a letter to the editor of, you know, of a local paper, just basically saying, hey, guess what? This is going on and I think it's important. So that is one way to get involved. Next challenge, watch at least one past ICRC meeting. I am going to click on this real quick just to show you where these are kept. So there is actually a YouTube channel. Basically, you can see every single meeting. They've all been done on Zoom. And I think this could be very informative for any or all of us. And, you know, obviously they're long. So you can check the agendas and stuff to know which parts you might want to, hang on one second, which parts you may want to attend. Hang on. I want to go back to full screen. Okay. So I mentioned we actually are going to have a public hearing in our area. It will be in Marquette, May 18th, 2021. Again, do we know if that will be all in person? I imagine it will be a hybrid, but that does mean that the commission is physically traveling up here. One thing that I'm going to try and do is see if we can get one of the commissioners to do something local for us. So stay tuned on that. Subscribe to the ICRC updates. Super easy. You'll just get emails letting you know what's going on. And again, I'll put that link in the chat. And the public hearing schedule is online at redistrictingmichigan.org. So I am actually going to, and last but not least, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So whichever one of these social media platforms that you use, the ICRC is on it. So you can get updates that way. All right, I am going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, yay, we have more people here now. All right, so I need to take a drink of water. And then I wanted to know if there's any questions. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, and everyone can feel free to come off of mute, show yourself on your camera if you have questions. Can also feel free to put questions in the chat. Again, because I am actually learning as I go, I might not be able to answer every question. So my usual response as a lifelong librarian is, that's a great question. Let me find out for you. So if you have a question that I can't answer, I will get back to you. So what I'm going to do is, while you all are thinking about if you have questions or not, I'm going to put some different. Did I start sharing my screen yet? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I want to stop that. Okay. And Paul, can you just confirm for me or can someone confirm for me in the chat that I've stopped sharing my screen? Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you. So let me start by putting the thing that's most important, actually, and that I'm going to ask you all to complete is basically an interest form. You'll recall that I think one of the slides said, contact your local league, right? So what I did was just put together a form that allows you to just give your phone and email, tell me how you want to be contacted, and then throws out some ideas for how you might want to get involved. And honestly, I did not include all of them. So, there are small ways, there are one-time ways, there are, there's so much that can be done. And even if all you're doing is sharing this presentation with your friends and, kind of spreading the word, that would be fantastic. So thank you. Yeah. I'm going to put that in there again. Also, hang on one second and I'll read. Are any members of the Redistricting Commission from the UP? That's a great question, Heidi. Because it was a random selection, I'm not sure. However, I agree. Really important that UPers speak up. Okay. So Marlene did her homework. So remember, while we did have applicants from the UP, because of the primarily random practice in selection, no, we didn't end up with one. However, that does not mean that we shouldn't reach out to the commission, testify, send emails. And like I said, when they do come up here physically to go to Marquette, I'm going to reach out and say, I want somebody to stop in the Sioux. And yes, due to COVID, that still might mean that it's, a virtual meeting. But I will do my best to get someone here. So I hope that answers your question. And let's see. So another challenge I mentioned was to go to the YouTube channel and watch a past meeting or 2 or 3. Don't watch the whole thing. They're like 4 hours long. So, or at the very least, you can multitask. I think it's nice just to kind of see how the process is happening. The fact that they have worked really hard to make this transparent, I think is a testament to, basically why we wanted to do it this way. All right, my other challenge. I will follow up. If you fill out that form, I'm going to follow up with you to let you know if I get one of the commissioners to swing by. They have to cross that bridge to get to Marquette. So I want to see if someone will stop here and talk to us. You can subscribe to MICRC updates. So I did this as well. Oops. And it comes to you through the Secretary of State's office. Let me give you the link. And again, that will just kind of keep you abreast of meetings, you know, anything else that's happening that involves the commission. And don't forget, all of these links that I'm putting in will be sent to you if you fill out the form. So I'm going to put that link for the form back in there. Because that's kind of the number one way to make sure you stay in the loop. I'm going to put a space between that and something else. Here is the form. So we're not like linking on different things here. Okay. So link to the form is in the chat. And finally, I mentioned Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just look up MICRC, Michigan Independent Redistricting Commission. And you could link to all of those if you just go to redistrictingmichigan.org. And I'm going to also stick that in the chat. And just see if there are any other questions. It's a lot to take in, evidenced by how thirsty I am and the fact that I have to take a quick drink right now. But I'm very glad to see a small but mighty group here. And to be honest, I'm relying on you to just start telling family and friends. And really think about that community of interest thing. You know, we in the UP are constantly looking for ways to tell the rest of the state about Northern Michigan and the UP and the very specific attributes and realities of our lives up here. So this is your chance, right? So please do get involved. And yes, thank you, Paul. I was going to do that. I was going to make sure I had all of my upcoming stuff ready. Thursday, May 13th at 7 p.m., Mark Brewer will talk about county redistricting, right? So this is a separate yet just as important process. So MICRC looks at state rep and above, but county commission districts are not affected by Proposal 2. So yet another kind of layer of jurisdiction, and, you know, we want to make sure that it's transparent and that we can have a say rather than having it just be like, okay, well, the incumbents or, you know, the parties are going to draw the lines and then we'll be left out of it. So thank you, Paul, for that. And you can, okay, yep, I did hear about that. So there are people working on expanding Chippewa County Commission back to 7 commissioners. So that is of interest, and that might make someone want to run for office. Who knows? So yeah, keep an eye on that. Thank you everyone who's put some, you know, some valuable stuff in the chat. I would say in terms of contact info, as long as you have filled out the interest form, I'm going to have your contact info and then we're good to go. However, I'm going to ask Amy this question and maybe you could put it in the chat because I need to get up to speed on these things. If somebody just wanted to email LWVEUP, I have an idea of how they would do it, but what is the email address? Thank you. Wow, I never could have guessed that. Um, all right, cool. Thank you very, very much. Um, well, I'm a big believer in giving people back some of their time because we're all pretty much doing back-to-back Zoom meetings these days anyway. Um, oh, thanks, Amy. Yeah. Also, just so everybody knows, I know stuff goes into the chat in such lightning quickness. There is actually a way to save the chat. And all you have to do is look at your chat window. There's 3 dots in the lower right next to the word file. And you click on the 3 dots and you say save chat. And that's it. So you'll have, trust me, I save the chat like in every meeting I'm in. Sometimes to look back and laugh at jokes that were said, but sometimes to grab those links. And yeah, so save the chat. But again, if you have filled out the famous form that I've pushed, I don't know, 10 times already, you're going to hear from me, and we're going to make sure that the UP in Northern Michigan is, yeah, thank you. Yeah. The file name will be pretty generic. It'll plop it into a folder deep in the depths of the dark, mysterious part of your hard drive. So just try and grab it and move it to somewhere that you can find it. And if you need any help or you want it, I'm going to save it anyway, and I could just email it to you. All right. I say it's a sunny day, 5 minutes to yourselves, unless anyone else has something to say for the benefit of the group. Thank you so much for your time. And yay us. Let's go out there. Take care, everybody.